And welcome back, everyone. Let's take a look at our national and international news. And of course, it is the morning after the election, and Canadians are waking up to a minority government after what was a very tight race. The Liberals, in the end, able to cling to power, and Justin Trudeau will enter his second term as Prime Minister.
From coast to coast to coast, tonight, Canadians rejected division and negativity.
Well, Trudeau won his own Montreal riding, but the party fell 13 seats shy of a majority. The Conservatives boosted their seat count, won the popular vote, in fact, by a very slim margin. Tory leader Andrew Scheer predicting the Liberal minority will be short-lived.
Tonight, Conservatives have put Justin Trudeau on notice. And Mr. Trudeau, when your government falls, Conservatives will be ready and we will win.
The NDP's momentum towards the end of the campaign did not translate, however, into votes. The party lost just over a dozen seats, but under a Liberal minority government. Yes, if you do the math, Jagmeet Singh could end up holding the balance of power. So here's a look at how the party lines were drawn across the country. The Liberals won 157 seats. Remember, you need 170 for a majority, 13 seats shy. Andrew Scheer's Conservatives took 121. The Bloc making big gains, more than tripling their representation with 32. That was a big surprise. The NDP fell to 24 seats, while the Greens got a boost to 3. And there's one independent held by Jody Wilson-Raybould. All right, with more on the election's biggest wins, losses, and the surprises. Yes, we're joined by Global's chief political correspondent, David Akin, who's fueled only by coffee and a love for politics.
And numbers and data, absolutely, yes.
Great job last night, by the way.
Thanks very much. Long night, you know.
It was a long night. In the end, the polls were more or less right throughout
the polls were dead on in the sense that in terms of the national popular vote, the Conservatives were like, what, about a point and a half better than the Liberals. But the problem is the Conservative vote is what's called inefficient. And so, for example, there's a few ridings in the middle of Alberta, Battle River, Crowfoot, the 2 Red Deer ridings, Yellowhead, where the Conservatives ran up what is the next best thing to unanimous with like 85%, 80%. All those votes were wasted. They only elect 1 MP in each riding. The Liberals were much more efficient. And the big story was in Ontario, where the Ford fear factor, which Trudeau was really hammering away at the end of the campaign, Ford and Scheer equals cuts. It may not be correct, but it had an effect. The Liberals won nearly 80 seats in Ontario. They won 80 seats in 2015. The Conservatives could not make a dent in the 905, and that was the ballgame.
And it's interesting that we haven't heard or really seen Doug Ford since.
No. Right? No, we haven't heard from Doug Ford since. He's sort of been in witness protection all through the thing because he's unpopular. But the other, on the flip side, you know, I think Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe is very popular in his province. Jason Kenney, the Alberta Premier, very popular. Saskatchewan, the Conservatives ran the table, and Scott Moe had been very active, and Ralph Goodale loses his seat. Absolutely. And in Alberta, the Conservatives almost ran the table. The New Democrats held 1 seat there. In Manitoba, where the Conservative Premier there, Brian Palliser, won an election the day before this one got started. Again, Conservatives doing very well, winning some seats in and around Winnipeg. You can drive from the Ontario border to the Pacific Ocean and stay in Conservative seats. That's the split. I mean, that clip we had about Trudeau, you're rejecting divisiveness. No, sorry, Prime Minister. There is a divided country. The West is blue. Ontario is pretty much red. Quebec has just elected a bunch of separatists, and you're the guy in charge.
Yeah, it definitely highlights the regional divide in this country. We've been down this road before.
Yes.
And this country has survived, even has survived minority governments. How do you anticipate this unfolding?
I think I was saying when I was on the show a couple of days ago, the number one issue for those who voted not Conservative was climate change. And the number one issue for those who voted Conservatives was my taxes are too high, followed by deficit. Nothing to do with climate change. So there's a bunch of parties who hold the balance of power who think climate change is the most important thing, then healthcare, and then housing. So when Trudeau looks to get the support of some parties to sustain his government, it's probably going to be moving on those 3 things. Brad Wall, the former Saskatchewan Premier, was on our panel last night, and he's very worried about the progress of the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. So it'll be very interesting to see how Justin Trudeau is going to manage proceeding with that project. The Liberals said they were in favor of it, but their partners now in the House of Commons are not at all in favor. Maybe the Bloc. I don't think the Bloc cares if there's a pipeline in BC, no pipeline in Quebec. That's
Right.
going to be the Bloc.
But speaking of potential partners, we're referring to in many ways the NDP. So it's interesting because you can claim a victory, but not really because,
the NDP was dancing around like they was the best day in their lives. They lost half their seats practically.
Right. So then the big player there was Quebec. But how much of a factor could they be in this minority government, given how much? Because Jagmeet Singh, well, losing more seats for his party, could be really
he could be the player.
role.
He could be. He's going to be the player. And this is the paradox of the way our system works: is that when Jack Layton won 100 seats, he was powerless because it was a Harper majority government he was facing off against. So here's a Trudeau Liberal government, and with just 24 or 20 odd seats, Jagmeet Singh will hold the balance of power and can perhaps force Trudeau to do some actions. The thing is, there's another partner, the Bloc Quebecois. You get them on side, you're also okay. And the Bloc was much less ideologically guided in terms of the markers they'd set down, so long as whatever Trudeau does has got to be good for Quebec. So if Trudeau did a national pharmacare program, which a lot of the parties on the left wanted, there'd have to be an opt-out for Quebec. You just have to give them cash and let them do their own program.
Is it fair to say that the Liberals have bought some time? Because no one is really in a position or has an appetite for an election. The NDP's really mortgaged their campaign headquarters literally.
We will see. The Conservatives are rich as Croesus, and they could probably fund remember, the spending limit was $29 million in this election for each major party. The Conservatives probably have that money in about a week.
All right, we only have a quick second, but I want any leader of that group in jeopardy of their job right now?
I don't think so. The only leader we might see a change is Elizabeth May, because she wants to move on. She's 65. She was looking maybe to pass the baton, so the Greens may be looking for a leader. I think Andrew Scheer holds on. Trudeau, he's the Prime Minister, and Singh ran a good campaign.
David, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much. David Akin.